Smile. Good evening and good afternoon. So today is the first day of the competition, the Inter-University Law Debate Tournament, organized by the Coax Foundation, and we'll have two teams who will be debating for their day one match of the group phase. So I give the floor to my colleague, Mr. Banova.
Thank you very much, Professor Lukács, and welcome to the debating teams opening up the very first match of the 2026 edition. Welcome to the Tallinn University of Technology debate team, and welcome to the debate team of University of Bologna. We hope you have engaging and, good exchange during today's debate. The topic you have received 7 days in advance is whether or not international trade law requires domestic enforcement measures to be applied so as to prevent discriminatory regulatory arbitrage. And of course, before we start for the debate and discover which team will represent which position, I will now pass the floor to the students for the introduction, starting with the University of Bologna. Ms. Soldatelli.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Maria Vittoria Soldatelli. I am from Brazil. I graduated in law and I'm currently a lawyer back in my home country. And I'm currently doing my master's degree in the University of Bologna on legal studies. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Thank you and welcome. From Tallinn University of Technology, Mr. Shiladze.
Hello everyone, my name is Luka Skiladze. I'm from Tallinn University of Technology, currently studying legal tech. It's a pleasure to attend this evening and I hope we have a great debate between us.
You're welcome. From University of Bologna, Mr. Marsh.
Good evening, esteemed judges and colleagues from the opposition. My name is Alessandro Marsh and I'm from South Africa, where I studied law. I'm currently in Bologna, pursuing a master in legal studies. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you and welcome. From Tallinn University of Technology, Mr. Makpateg.
Hello everybody, my name is Joseph Blaine Magpentai. I'm currently studying law. I'm currently in my first year of bachelor's in the Tallinn University of Technology. It's nice to see everybody and looking forward to a good debate with you all.
Thank you, welcome. From University of Bologna, Ms. Ospin.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jaren Ozcan. I'm from University of Bologna, currently studying a master's degree in law. I'm from Turkey, and I studied my bachelor's degree in law in Turkey as well. Hope to have a great match.
Thank you. And from Tallinn University of Technology, Mr. Ilsidnov.
Hello, everyone. My name is Juho Ylisirnia, and I'm a second-year bachelor student in law, and I'm originally from Finland. It's nice to see everyone, and I hope we have a great debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now it is time to do the allocation of the positions. So I'll be sharing my screen, and you will see a wheel with the name of your universities. So normally you should see that there are two positions possible for each university, to be in favor or to be against the motion, and the team will be in favor of the motion. We'll be starting the match with the first introduction. So now I activate the wheel, and we'll know which position will have each team for this match. So for this match, that will be Tallinn University of Technology will be against the motion. As a consequence, that would be the University of Bologna will be in favor of the motion and will be having the first introduction. So concretely, it means that the University of Bologna will be defending the position that international trade law requires domestic enforcement measure to be applied so as to prevent discriminatory regulatory arbitrage. While Tallinn University of Technology will defend the position that international trade law does not require domestic enforcement measure to be applied so as to prevent discriminatory regulatory arbitrage. So now you will have 5 minutes to review your notes, and in 5 minutes we'll hear the introduction by the University of Bologna. Yes, we are
Thank
done.
you, everyone. Your time for final preparation is now over. We'll be starting by hearing the opening statements by the team in favor. Just a short reminder for everyone participating that there will be visual cues for the time. Yellow card in case of 30 seconds left. Red card when the speaking time is up. That said, wishing all the best for the participating teams. Bologna, you now have 4 minutes for your opening statements.
Honorable judges, we appear before you to defend the proposition. International trade law is a system of binding obligations, but these obligations cannot be fulfilled if a state maintains a domestic legal shadow, a space where international rules are bypassed through internal regulatory gaps. And this is discriminatory regulatory arbitrage. Our question today is not whether international trade law imposes a positive Our question today is whether international trade law imposes a positive obligation on states to step into that shadow, whether it requires domestic enforcement measures to be applied to prevent discriminatory arbitrage, and we submit that it must. Our case rests on 3 points. So first, the explicit mandate of conformity under the Marrakesh Agreement. Second, the legal standard of conduct inherent in the national treatment principle. And third, the legal duty of non-circumvention under the principle of good faith. So first, regarding the mandate of conformity, we must address the Marrakesh Agreement, which is the founding treaty of the World Trade Organization, the legal backbone of the global trading system. Article 16 governs the relationship between international trade law and domestic law, and its paragraph 4 requires WTO members to ensure that their domestic laws, regulations, and administrative procedures conform to their obligations under the WTO system. This provision creates a binding obligation of conduct. A state that fails to apply domestic enforcement to correct the issue of discriminatory regulatory arbitrage is in direct violation of Article 16, paragraph 4. Second, regarding the national treatment principle established in Article 3 of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, which is a core treaty of the WTO system, a country cannot discriminate against imported products through internal taxes or regulations once those products have entered the domestic market. And this, established in the case Japan alcoholic beverages too, is an unconditional legal obligation. When the law mandates effective equality, it necessitates the domestic machinery required to uphold that equality. A state cannot fulfill the legal standard of national treatment if it lacks the enforcement measures to address the uneven application of its own regulations. The obligation is not to merely refrain from discrimination, but to provide a legal framework where the required standard is actively enforced. And third, regarding the duty of non-circumvention, we cannot forget the good faith established on Article 26 of the Vienna Convention on the Law of the Treaties is a binding rule of international law that prohibits states from frustrating the object and the purpose of a treaty. And from good faith derives the anti-circumvention principle, so a state may not avoid its treaty obligations indirectly. In the context of trade, discriminatory regulatory arbitrage functions as a circumvention not only of the national treatment principle, but also of the most favored nation principle, so Article 1 of the GATT, which establishes that all WTO members must be treated equally. So international trade law does require domestic enforcement because it prohibits states from doing indirectly via arbitrage what they cannot do directly via tariffs, because this is disguised as protectionism. To ignore the reality of discriminatory arbitrage is to allow the circumvention of international trade law. And to conclude, international trade law is not built on mere formal compliance, but on binding obligations. If the principles of national treatment and good faith constrain states at the international level, why should they disappear when discrimination is produced through domestic regulatory gaps? And for these reasons, the motion must stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We'll now hear the opening statements for the against position by the debate team of Tallinn University of Technology. You have 4 minutes.
Honorable judges, the proposition is asking you to expand international trade law far beyond its legal limits. They want us to look at trade law as something that doesn't challenge state measures, but also domestic capabilities. This would turn the WTO into a general authority enforcement, not what it's designed for. This is not supported by law, and therefore our team line is simple. International trade law regulates state measures, not domestic enforcement outcomes. Our first argument falls on legal responsibility because WTO in its law says that it only challenges state measures. It cannot challenge private measures. So private measures cannot be allocated to state measures until there is a clear government direction or control. This is what happened in Japan film when Kodak said that we cannot sell our films in Japan because they're making us too expensive. The panel rejected the argument because it said that private behavior, which is a business strategy and which is how businesses operate, because businesses find loopholes and make money on it, cannot be converted into an international obligation. Therefore, this is a legal category error because the opposition is trying to convert a business strategy into something of an international matter. Our second argument falls on regulatory chill because if the opposition's arguments are accepted, we will get no law instead of law because the countries will not regulate this because it has high risk, because it cannot be controlled, and there can never be a perfect enforcement. International trade law was not created to control domestic actions. It was created to control and regulate cross-border relationships. Therefore, we must designate what it was created for. And to sum it up, all countries have their own sovereignty and independence. All countries have their own budgets and their own problems. Some countries must deal with taxes. Some countries must deal with crimes. Some countries must deal with corruption. So try telling a parent of a child that their child was murdered on a street because their country cannot fight against the crime, even though they knew about it. But the WTO decided they must enforce the law, so they had to allocate money not into police, but into law enforcement. Try telling an elder person who is waiting for the pension that they did not get their pension and they can spend their elderly life in dignity because WTO decided to become a general authority enforcement, and therefore the country had to allocate money into a certain law. And try to tell a person that they cannot get their health care or their children can't get a free education because their country could not fight against tax evasion, even though they knew about it. But again, WTO became a general ruler of the world because trade law only exists to govern cross-border relationships, not domestic problems, because this is legally unachievable and there cannot be a perfect domestic enforcement, and because every country has their own sovereignty and their own independence and their own problems, we finish our opening speech by opposing this argument. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to the rebuttals. So first rebuttal in the proposition, Bologna University, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will begin now. So I would like to commend the honourable opposition for bringing up key points in this debate. Points such as legal category errors, getting involved in the business, quite literally the business of other states, and of course the key question of sovereignty. Our sovereignty is essential, and of course our side respects the idea of sovereignty. But most countries, including the honourable opposition's own state of Estonia, said in their constitutional judgment 341612, and I quote, "Entering into international agreements always means restricting one's sovereignty to some extent." Now, our position is not that domestic policy should be ruled over by some foreign power. I fear that while the honourable opposition raised many good points about enforcement, they failed to address the key point about what it means to enforce domestically. Domestic enforcement is the only way in which states maintain their sovereignty. Domestic enforcement not of rules and regulations imposed upon them by some foreign international body, but consented to by the state in question. So the real question here is it beneficial for states to consent to such treaties? Well, we can look at the stats. Organizations such as the OECD have found that when countries implement and enforce technical regulations, trade costs drop by an average of 10 to 15%. So it is certain that the implementation of such rules is beneficial. I ask the opposition, what is a greater threat to a nation's destiny? A set of fair, enforced rules that ensure they are treated with dignity, or a lawless trade environment where the strong truly do impose their will on the weak? I concede my time back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you. For the first rebuttal in the against position, Tallinn University of Technology, you have 2 minutes.
Am I audible? Okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panel. In an ideal world wherein international trade law and international treaty as a whole is interpreted in such a linear way as what proposition is trying to tell you, yes, their case would stand as a whole. However, our world doesn't run simply based on similar interpretations by each nation. What team opposition is trying to tell you is that the varying means of interpretation can very much well indeed be within the legal frameworks that team proposition presented, as such as the good faith frameworks within the Vienna Convention, however, can still remain discriminatory against other outside businesses. Panel, why is this very important to this debate? Because this debate doesn't only happen within a developed world. This debate also happens within a developing country perspective, wherein a majority of states wouldn't necessarily have the same ability to enforce these types of domestic trade issues, right? The reason as to this is because they simply lack the resources and manpower to do so compared to a majority of developing countries. Why is this highly relevant? It's because these developing countries are the main idea and sources for a majority of manufacturing, and actually they receive a majority of the benefits from world trade as a whole, due to the fact that they receive a large ton of imports and exports coming from these more developed nations. Why this should matter more than what proposition is trying to tell you, this is because as a whole, as what we've been seeing in the status quo, a large majority of more developed nations are starting to use domestic trade laws in order to misconstrue the value of free trade as a whole. How this is actually happening is because a large majority of developed nations are now preventing a large majority of other outside sources from being present within their nations, and thus these developing countries are suffering due to the fact that they're going to these places instead.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal in favor position. University of Bologna, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'll begin now. Once again, the honorable opposition raises a great point. We too believe that we should really channel the law's resources into the benefit of these developing countries. And sadly, we have developed countries that will, of course, seek to take advantage. However, the stats don't lie. They show that developing countries share a global export which nearly doubled. It nearly doubled in the time that international trade law was most enforced. Furthermore, the poverty rate plummeted from 36% to 9% over that time. And countries which don't locally domestically enforce these norms actually lose close to 1% of their GDP per year. And so we agree that we should make sure that these laws are enforced in order to continue to benefit these developing nations. Now, something else that the opposition brought up, which was very true, is ideals versus reality. And I'd like to talk quickly about a reality happening right now in the field, and that is what is referred to as the appealing to the voids crisis. Now, as we all know, currently the World Trade Organization de facto lacks an appellant division, and this means we have many nations appealing to the void. It renders international law a paper tiger, as the opposition said, the world of ideals. Okay, and so what they say makes sense in theory, but the current state of affairs necessitates domestic enforcement of these norms, because without them, we revert back to unilateral enforcement by these developed states exerting their power on developing states. The evidence shows that states that continue to act in good faith enforcing these measures increase their trade stability by 15%. And so, the Honourable Opposition's argument is sound, perhaps in a world where we talk in theories. But right now, we need a solution that addresses the real, concrete situation of our time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear the second rebuttal in the against position. Tallinn University of Technology, you have 2 minutes.
I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Panel, we see it as a major issue. A STEAM proposition comes up to you and tells us our world is truly theoretical based on the fact that a large majority of nations will now be going against one another and developed countries will be taken advantage of in our world. However, we do not see this as the case because international law as a whole will still be present on our side of the house. Thus, we do not see as to how the lack of a domestic measures of enforcement of trade law in general will actually lead to a large majority of nations being abused on our side of the house. Moreover, we actually see this happen more on their side of the house. Why is this the case? For a large majority of nations who are going to be trying to enter into these more developed markets, such as how the US entered the British market in order to expand their market economy, this will no longer be present within the status quo because now, as we are seeing with entities like Trump and Putin, these people are bypassing international law by using their means of domestic law as an excuse to do so. Why domestic enforcement measures will not work within the status quo is because a large majority of politicians now are not conforming to the legal frameworks that were present within the past, such as the 1990s. Thus, we seek you, panel, to look into one of the main purposes of the law to begin with, and that is to evolve within the changes that is happening within society. Panel, if we stick directly to what has happened in the past and we fail to adapt as to the present status quo, we were no longer going to be able to address the current issues which is going on. And that is the fact that domestic law as a whole, when it comes to international trade issues, is being used as an excuse in order to violate principles of international law. And if we are to continue to do so and allow these nations to continue within their domestic law, instead of giving them less room for interpretation, our world as a whole will be doomed.
Thank you. We have now heard the rebuttals, so moving to the last stage of conclusions. University of Bologna, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. I will be starting in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges and esteemed colleagues, as we close this debate, we must ask one question. Is international trade law a functional legal order or just a polite suggestion? The opposition wants us to believe that as long as a law looks good on paper, the state's job is done. We disagree, because law that exists on paper but is ignored in the practice is not a law. It's a legal shadow. But what we actually need is a functional legal order. We have demonstrated that the motion must stand because the obligations do not add at the border. They must extend to the domestic measures that make those obligations a reality. First, we pointed to conformity. Under the Marrakesh Agreement, conformity isn't a choice, it's a mandate. The law explicitly states that members have a binding obligation of conduct to ensure their administrative procedure align with their duties. When a state fails to apply enforcement to correct discriminatory arbitrage, it's a direct violation of this constitutional foundation. Second, the national treatment is not a passive requirement to refrain from harm. It's a positive duty to maintain effective equality, competitive opportunities. A state cannot claim to provide equality if its domestic machinery allows local firms to bypass rules that foreign firms must follow. Finally, we must uphold the duty of non-circumvention. Basically, we cannot allow states to do indirectly what they are forbidden from doing directly. Honorable judges, trade law is not about giving suggestions. It's a system of binding obligations. If the law does not reach the enforcement, it becomes an empty promise. For this reason, international trade law requires domestic enforcement measures to be applied so as to prevent discriminatory regulatory arbitrage. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Now for the concluding statements of the Tallinn University of Technology, you have 2 minutes.
Am I audible? Yes. I will begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Honorable judges, our side stands for limits, because without limits, trade law loses legitimacy. International trade law was never meant to supervise how governments govern, yet that is exactly what the proposition invites you to accept. The moment trade law panels begin judging how well a country enforces its own laws, trade law stops facilitating exchange and starts exercising control. That is not a small shift. That is a fundamental transformation. Imperfect enforcement exists in every state at every level of development. If failure to enforce becomes a violation, then compliance is no longer a legal standard. It becomes a privilege of wealth. Countries with fewer resources are punished not for discrimination, but for capacity. The WTO has already rejected this path. In Japan Film, the WTO refused to hold Japan responsible for market outcomes it did not direct or mandate. In Guatemala Labor, the panel made clear that weak enforcement alone was not enough. These rulings were not technicalities. They were safeguards designed to prevent trade law from expanding beyond its proper role and scope. Because trade law has a core scope, preventing international protectionism, once it moves from do not discriminate to enforce better, it crosses that boundary. And we must be honest about what follows. Free trade is not automatically prosperity. Enforcement choices reflect societal values, jobs versus prices, protection versus efficiency, growth versus dignity. Allowing trade bodies to second-guess these decisions quickly transfers power away from democratic institutions into unelected panels. Trade law must be strong, but it also must know where it ends, because once it claims authority over domestic enforcement, there's no principled place for it to stop. While yes, international agreements always mean ceding bits of sovereignty to facilitate cooperation, resources remain limited, and for some countries, this allocation of resources is an untenable cost. For these reasons, we urge you to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. You can all now relax. This concludes the evaluation part of the match. You are no longer graded after this point. Well done on concluding your first debate match in day 1 of the group phase. Before we proceed, of course, to the wrap-up of the match, we always do a short feedback round on how you found the debate, the research, the topic, if you had encountered already law that you have used in the argumentation. So perhaps starting with the University of Bologna. Ms. Oskin, how did you find the debate and the match itself?
I think I can start. I found it very productive in a sense because it does provide us with the opportunity to reflect on issues that are quite important these days, but sometimes we cannot see beyond surface level, I would say, and this topic is deceivingly difficult. I think it's quite a difficult matter, and it's a matter of how to interpret treaties, how to apply international law. What does international law really means if we are not doing anything at the domestic level? But can we do it? So I find those reflections very interesting from a legal aspect, of course, and from an aspect as a citizen, because we live in a global world. So yes, this is quite interesting, I would say.
Thank you for sharing. From Tallinn University of Technology debate team, Mr. Skeladze, how did you find the debate, the topic?
Well, the debate was chosen in a very wise way, I must say, by the organizers, because both of the sides had their own arguments, and it was about who did the argumentation better. So we'll leave of course, the decision to the judges, but in general scope of things, the debate was interesting, and the University of Bologna did an also great job. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope in the future we also have these kind of quality debates with other universities as well. So yeah, thank you again for the organizers, and good luck in the future to our colleagues.
Thank you. Mr. Marsh of University of Bologna, how did you find the debate, the match?
Thank you. Yes, just to mirror what my colleagues both from my university and the opposing university, I think the best thing I found in preparing for these debates is both being exposed to different events, legal events happening in the world, which I otherwise might not have come across so concretely. And I love the feeling you get when, after the sides have been chosen, hearing the arguments of the other team and suddenly seeing that for a week, two completely separated groups were all focusing on the same material for the same event, which I think is really special. And in particular, compared to the first practice debate I had, I really enjoyed the give and take in the rebuttals, and it got me excited in a good way to respond and to hear the responses of the other team. So I'd like to congratulate them on their performance, and I wish them the best of luck going forward.
Thank you for sharing. Mr. Sidney of Tallinn University of Technology, how did you find the debate, the match, the topic?
I found the debate to be quite enjoyable, and it's always interesting to ponder where enforcement of international law ends and where it begins, and who enforces what and how. It was definitely a topic that made us, I know I can speak for our team, made us have to kind of think a lot deeper than maybe what we were used to, and had us definitely pondering. And I'm really impressed by the performance of the team at the University of Bologna. I mean, it makes sense for such a old and esteemed university to have such a quality debate team. I really enjoyed debating with you guys. This was a lot of fun and very well organized and well coordinated. And I wish you guys the best.
Thank you. Ms. Oskin of the University of Bologna, how did you find the topic, the debate, the match?
Okay, firstly, I would love to sorry, I'm still a little bit excited. I would like to thank you guys on behalf of my teammates as well. It was a great pleasure to have this match with you, and this honor belongs to us to hear your reasonings about the same subject we worked on for the previous 1 week. And I found the subject very challenging, actually, compared to the practice match we had before. But I enjoyed a lot, and thank you again for this experience.
Sharing, Mr. Ben Magpate of Tallinn University of Technology, how did you find the match, the debate, the topic?
I found this debate very insightful because, as somebody who's taking my first year in law, it's actually quite a fun experience being able to go through these topics with such complexity, because in the past, where I've debated before, the law wasn't necessarily all that relevant towards what we were discussing about or the cases we were running. So to be able to explore similar topics through a legal standpoint and have such educated and knowledgeable opponents to learn from, it's truly an honor. And the debate as a whole was very fun for me. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you all. Really well done on concluding your first match, for preparing for it, and for delivering your arguments. I'll now pass the floor to Professor Match to wrap us up with a traditional segment of the debates.
Yes, congratulations. It was really a nice first match. And of course, we thank as well your coach. I have to mention on the side of Tallinn University of Technology, Alexis Oscar Johannes Kayander, who has been coaching for several years. And on the side of Bologna, José Antonio Molinelli, Gulekan Ildiz, and Mahmoud Bayramov, who have been debating last year for Bologna. So now they are coach. So many thanks, and as well we send greetings to the three judges who will be watching the match. Now a bit of networking. So I will have 2 questions for both teams. So you can answer as a team, or I mean each of you per team, I mean. So my first question is, why did you decide to represent your university in the tournament? And what was this selection meaning for you, actually, as law student representing your own university in this international competition? So I will ask first the team from Bologna. Tell me, how did you decide, and what does it mean for you to participate to this competition? So want to start, for example, Mr. March.
Yes, thank you. For me, I'm obviously I've been studying the law for a while now, and as someone from the opposition actually mentioned, we tend to study the law in classrooms. We learn it concretely. This is what it is, and we hear about the controversies. But it was very special for me to engage. I love also meeting people from different nations and hearing different perspectives. So it's very interesting to have a live back and forth. Why I wanted to represent my university is because I'm a bit of a romantic about my university, which is why I traveled from South Africa to study there. And so the idea of representing the University of Bologna in a legal debate competition felt very, very special to me. And I'm very happy I've done it. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Soldatelli?
Well, for me, I feel like, first of all, like all my colleagues said, we are very used to being stuck in a classroom and learning about law. This is how it is, and that's it. And I feel like a debate competition gives us the opportunity to deal with these legal issues in a more dynamic way, in a sense that you are given a theme that sometimes you're not discussing in class, and you have to learn about it and do your research. And I feel like this is a very interesting learning opportunity in a sense, because it's not your traditional way of learning. And especially because you're preparing for both the pro and the con side. So you have to see value in both sides, of course, if you want to defend one of them, right? So it's really incredible to be here. And regarding representing my university, I'm also romantic about the University of Bologna. I have a long history with his university. I've been here during my bachelor's years as Erasmus, and I fell in love with it. Everything about it just makes me really, really happy and proud to be here, and representing it is such an honor that I could not pass. I would say that's it.
Thank you. Miss Oshkan?
Well, first, it's a great honor for me to represent University of Bologna, which has this much of history and experience behind. So it was always great for me it was always great for me, the idea of representing University of Bologna. For the debate matches, my idea was, well, I was practicing as a lawyer back in Turkey, so I kind of missed the feeling of defending a point, and the mentality is quite the same as in the courthouse here, and for me, it's a great experience to taste it again in another language. So thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ilir Signo?
Firstly, I must say that I find it very touching how the University of Bologna team described feeling romantic towards their university. It's making me feel romantic towards the University of Bologna, and I've never been. But I do have to say that the reason I chose to represent Tallinn University of Technology is I've never been a lawyer myself yet, hopefully one day, but I've done a lot of model UNs, and I have an interest in public speaking, and I feel like this is a great opportunity to improve my speaking skills and also represent the university. And I feel like that opportunity was something that I did not want to pass up. And that's why I decided to represent my university.
Thank you. Mr. Skidladze.
Thank you again. Well, where to begin? As a person who's studying on masters nowadays and is concentrate on his field, in my case, it's fintech and legal tech in general. It is an honor, and it's all a good chance to also discuss this kind of matters in a deeper way, and also representing the THIULDT. It's a big feeling for me because this week every class I took, every lecturer was cheering for me. They were telling me that we know you're participating in the debate and we're cheering for you, and we know that you have a great coach and you guys will do great. And today they also gave us the room so we could stick together as a team and present it. And it caused some audio errors, but I hope nothing too important. So yeah, representing THIULDT is a great honor for me because I've only been here for 6 months, and it already feels like a family for me because all the lecturers and all the students are like supporting us and cheering for us, and it's a big responsibility. So we tried our best of the best today. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. McPenty.
Somebody taking their first year in law, this is a major opportunity for me, especially for somebody who loves debating. I feel like I could have learned a lot from this tournament, which is exactly why I joined, and I'm happy to say that that is definitely the case. Being able to engage into such legally heavy topics is so incredibly fun, and it's really making me love my decision more and wanting to become a lawyer in the future, especially in such a format where are usually intuitively to look at specific sides with specific biases. So to be able to come up with arguments and look at an issue through both sides and substantiate those sides is truly a wonderful thing that allows me as a person to really evolve my critical thinking ability. So that is why I joined this tournament, because as somebody who's been debating firsthand for a couple of years, I knew that feeling very well, and to be able to do that with the law and implement my previous experience is why I joined. And as for representing TALTech, it is a major opportunity and a major honor for me, especially as a first-year student. So I'm just really happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, last question for this session. So it's a more cultural question. So let's say the team from Tallinn is coming to Bologna. What would be the first thing you would ask them to visit or to try in Bologna? It could be as well food. So who would like to tell something about what to experience in Bologna for the first days, let's say? So I don't know, one of you in Bologna can take the floor and the others can complement.
Well, what I can say is Bologna is inside of the lines of Italy. So everything they're going to taste will be amazing, for sure. And but for especially for Bologna, I hardly recommend tortellini in brodo, which is a winter dish. I can see that my teammates are agreeing with me too. So it's great. But about the place, I think Maria can give a better answer. She likes traveling more than me.
Well, I feel like Bologna, of course, the food, I feel like it's one of the best places in Italy. You can find anything to eat, honestly. Tortellini in brodo is one of the best, of course. And I would say do lose yourself in the center of the city because it's quite small, but still it has this medieval charm that every street has its own history and culture, and that it's such an interesting part of the city. The porticos are incredible, but I would say go to Piazza Maggiore, walk around, see the two towers. They're quite impressive for their age. So yeah, and you guys would be very welcome here, of course.
Something to add, Mr. March?
I would say, let me give a bit of a boring answer, but I think it's an interesting answer. Is take a walk first, get the tortellini, take a walk through the streets, and then you'll come across eventually the graves and tombs of the first professors of Bologna, the legal law professors. And it's great for respect and reverence, but also for the stories, because I remember one time I was in a legal history class and we were all taking notes as the professor's speaking, and he tells us, why do we know all these things about the University of Bologna and all the gossip, a lot of gossip? Because the students would write down everything the professor was saying, 700 years ago. And it's that surreal moment where you realize the kind of student life you're living was very similar to the student life that was lived centuries ago. So think about that while you enjoy your pasta al ragù or tortellini.
Thank you very much. Now, same question for the team in Tallinn. First time the students from Bologna will be coming, maybe not the first time, but next time they will be coming to Tallinn, what they should visit, they should taste. So who wants to start?
I'll start. First of all, get your warm clothes if you visit Tallinn, because it's freezing outside every day. So that's the worst thing for us to cope. So I would suggest to visit the old town. It's not a big place, but it's very beautiful, and especially at winter if you visit and when the snow is gliding and so on, it's amazing to just walk around the city. But if evening arrives, you will get cold, very cold. So you'll probably think about some shots of vodka. And with that, I will suggest to you the Groove Bar, which is like a place where all the international students go. And as I understood, you guys love meeting new people from different countries. So that's the best place to go there and have fun. And I've actually met some Italians. There are also people from Turkey and from South Africa. So yeah, maybe you will find someone from your own countries as well and have a great time with them. So yeah, that's my suggestion. So warm clothes and Old Town, and then Group Bar.
Thank you. Mr. Shiladze or Mr. Ilsionio? Mr. Ilsionio or Mr. McPatari, sorry, wants to add something here.
Well, to add to that, I would say, yeah, Old Town is a great place. Tallinn has some similarities to Bologna in that they're both very medieval in their origins, and Tallinn's Old Town is very well preserved. But I'd have to think. I'd say the Old Town has many really nice restaurants as well, and I'm blanking on the exact name of the restaurant, but there are many restaurants that serve these medieval dishes, and eating one of these dishes that they've like recreated from the Middle Ages really makes you feel like you're taking a leap through time, a leap back in time, and it's very nice. I'd recommend that.
Mr. McPantai?
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Old Town is definitely a place you'd have to visit, especially because there's one of my favorite spots for food there. There's this bakery where you can find this cookie for €3, and it's like the size of my head. Like, it's massive, and it's super tasty. And they sell like a whole bunch of other confectionaries, like brownies infused with vodka. Like, I asked the lady who was selling it, she told me there was one shot per brownie. It was insane. So definitely, if you like sweets, you should go to that bakery in Old Town. And other than Tallinn, actually, you should try to go to Tartu, because when I went there, it was beautiful. Like, Tallinn is this more like metropolitan area, but Tartu has this I'd say actually very Italian feel to it, wherein it's a nice mix between really nice architecture, but the modernization hasn't really impacted it all that much. So it's a really nice blend between nature and that metropolitan area. So yeah.
Thank you very much. So that was the first match. So we are at the end of this session. So means concretely now we'll give the time to the judge for them to watch and rewatch the match during the next 2 business days. So it means until Tuesday, so not during the weekend. And just for you to know, the next round, the day 2, will be a match between Bologna and a team from Bhutan, and the team from Tallinn will have a match against the team from India. So these are the 2 other teams in the group A. So many thanks to all of you. Wish you a great weekend, of course, and congratulations for your first match of the edition, concretely the 2026 edition. So well done, and of course, don't hesitate to watch the match of your opponents and other match in other teams as well, in other groups. So many thanks, and wish you the best, and have a good weekend. Bye bye.
Well done. Goodbye.